When Sakura Matsumoto left home on that sunny morning of September 23, 1997, wearing her navy blue school uniform and carrying her little pink backpack with her favorite snacks, no one imagined it would be the last time her parents would see her bright smile through the school bus window. The morning air was fresh in Campos do Jordão, a town in the interior of São Paulo, and the characteristic fog of the mountainous city was beginning to dissipate among the pine trees surrounding the residential neighborhood where the family lived. Sakura, only 8 years old, of third-generation Japanese descent, was especially excited that morning as her second-grade class was going on a field trip to the Campos do Jordão State Park, an activity she had been eagerly anticipating for weeks. As only a child could dot, the Professor João Silva Municipal School, where Sakura studied, had organized this field trip as part of a pedagogical project on the environment and nature conservation. The school, located in the city center, served approximately 300 children from working-class families in the region, many of whom worked in the local tourism sector, which was the main economic driver in the area. Sakura's mother, Hanako Matsumoto, worked as a housekeeper at the Toriba Hotel, while her father, Jiro Matsumoto, was a driver for a tourism company that took visitors on tours of the beautiful natural spots in the Serra da Mantiqueira. That Tuesday morning, the schedule for the field trip was meticulously planned. The children were to meet at the school at 7 a.m., board the chartered bus at 7:30, arrive at the park by 8:30, participate in educational activities in the morning, have a picnic lunch at 12 p.m., continue activities in the afternoon, and return to school by 4 p.m. The night before, Sakura had helped her mother prepare a special lunch. There were ham and cheese sandwiches, orange juice in a thermos, chocolate cookies, and a red apple she had personally picked at the Sunday market. The weather was perfect for outdoor activities. The temperature was 15 degrees Celsius in the morning, expected to rise to 20 degrees Celsius in the afternoon. The sky was partly cloudy with a few white clouds scattered, typical of the mountainous climate in the region during September. The air humidity was at 70%, creating that refreshing feeling that the locals appreciated so much and which attracted tourists from all over the state of São Paulo. At the school, the day began early. Sakura's class teacher, Maria Santos, 32 years old, arrived at 6:30 a.m. to finalize the preparations. She was known for her dedication and affection toward the children, having taught at the school for 8 years. Along with her on the field trip were the pedagogical coordinator, Silvia Oliveira, 45 years old, and 2 student interns from the pedagogy course at the University of Vale do Paraíba, Ricardo Mendes, 22 years old, and Paula Rodrigues, 21 years old. The school's principal, Professor Antonio Carlos Ribeiro, 58 years old, was also present that morning. He had been leading the school for 15 years and had an impeccable reputation in the school community. Tall with gray hair and always dressed in a dark suit, he was respected by parents, teachers, and staff. That morning, he personally checked all the necessary documents for the field trip, including the signed parental consent forms, the chartered bus contract with the Aviação Campos Verdes Company, and the school insurance that covered all the children during the outdoor activity. The 23 children in the class arrived punctually, accompanied by their parents or guardians. Sakura arrived at 7:15 a.m. with her mother, Hanako, who had worked late the night before and woke up at 5:30 a.m. to prepare her daughter's lunch and accompany her to school. The little girl was beaming, chatting animatedly with her classmates about what they hoped to see at the park trails, wildlife, exotic plants, and perhaps even some monkeys that lived in the area. The bus arrived at 7:25 a.m. It was a 1995 model, well-maintained, with 46 seats, driven by Osvaldo Silva, 43 years old, who had worked at Aviacao Campus Verdes for 17 years and had experience transporting school groups through the mountainous roads of the region. Before departure, Principal Antonio Carlos did a quick check of the children's names, made sure they were all wearing identification badges, and reminded them of the safety rules for the trip. The journey to the park lasted exactly 1 hour. The children sang nursery rhymes, played guessing games, and admired the mountainous landscape through the windows. Sakura sat in the 5th row next to her best friend Beatriz Costa, also 8 years old. The two of them chatted excitedly about their expectations for the day and shared the snacks their mothers had lovingly prepared. Upon arrival at the park, the group was welcomed by 2 environmental guides. Fernando Alves, 35 years old, a biologist from the University of São Paulo, and Carla Nascimento, 28 years old, an environmental educator specializing in ecotourism. They explained to the children the importance of preserving the Atlantic forest and began a walk along the main trail, which was approximately 2 kilometers long and considered to be of low difficulty, suitable for school groups. The morning activities went smoothly. The children observed different species of native trees, identified animal tracks, collected leaves for the school herbarium, and participated in educational games about environmental preservation. Sakura seemed particularly interested in the explanations about the region's birds and asked several insightful questions that impressed the guides. At 12 p.m., as scheduled, the group headed to the picnic area. It was a large space with rustic wooden tables scattered under the shade of centuries-old araucaria trees. A small stream flowed nearby, creating a soothing sound of running water that blended with the calls of native birds. The children formed small groups to have lunch, supervised by their teachers and monitors. Sakura was especially excited during lunch. She shared her sandwiches with Beatriz and asked Teacher Maria if she could pick some wildflowers to take home to her mother. The teacher explained the importance of not removing anything from the natural environment, but promised they would take beautiful photos for her to show at home. The little girl agreed cheerfully and posed for several photos with her friends. Lunch, a bird-watching activity, was scheduled at a natural lookout, located approximately 500 meters from the picnic area. The group split into 2 smaller teams for easier supervision, one with 12 children, accompanied by Teacher Maria and Monitor Ricardo, and the other with 11 children, accompanied by Coordinator Sylvia and Monitor Paula. Sakura was in the second group, along with her friend Beatriz. The path to the lookout was a well-marked trail, about a 15-minute walk. The vegetation on both sides was dense, mainly composed of preserved Atlantic forest, with tall trees providing natural shade even in the afternoon. The ground was slightly damp from the morning dew, which had not yet completely evaporated, but it posed no risk of slipping. It was during this walk that the unthinkable happened. According to later reports from Coordinator Sylvia, Sakura was walking normally in the middle of the group when she stopped to tie her shoelaces. She asked the group to continue ahead, saying she would catch up in a few seconds. The coordinator hesitated for a moment, but since the trail was straight and Sakura was only a few meters behind, she decided to continue with the rest of the children, instructing Monitor Paula to wait for the girl. Monitor Paula Rodriguez, the intern, remained a few meters ahead, watching the group as they made their way to the lookout. According to her later testimony, she looked back after about 2 minutes and did not see Sakura in the place where she had left her. Initially, she thought the girl had run ahead to catch up with the main group, but when she reached the lookout and did not find her, panic began to set in. Coordinator Sylvia immediately called roll and confirmed that Sakura was not present. The emergency protocol was activated immediately. Monitor Paula ran back along the trail, calling the girl's name, while Sylvia kept the other children gathered at the lookout. The first group, led by Teacher Maria, was immediately informed via walkie-talkie and also began searching the nearby area. The environmental guides, Fernando and Carla, were notified and arrived at the site in less than 10 minutes. They knew the region well and were aware that there were no deep ravines or dangerous bodies of water near the main trail. However, there were several secondary trails branching off the main one, mainly used by researchers and park staff to access more remote areas. During the first 30 minutes of the search, it was expected that Sakura would be found easily. 8-year-old. Children don't usually wander far when they get lost. They generally stay where they got lost or follow obvious paths. However, after thoroughly searching the main trail and its closest branches, there was no sign of the girl, not even footprints on the damp ground, nor pieces of clothing caught in the vegetation, nor any response to the repeated calls of her name. Principal Antonio Carlos, who had remained in the picnic area organizing activities, was immediately informed about the disappearance. He decided to contact the Campos do Jordão Fire Department at 2:15 p.m., approximately 45 minutes after Sakura's last sighting. At the same time, he contacted the park management to request additional support and informed the school about the emergency situation. Sakura's parents were contacted at 2:30 p.m. Hanako was working at the Toriba hotel when she received the call from the school secretary. At first, she did not fully comprehend the gravity of the situation, thinking that perhaps her daughter had simply injured herself during an activity. It wasn't until the secretary explained that Sakura had disappeared and that the fire department was being contacted that the reality hit Hanako hard. Giro. The father was driving a group of tourists on a tour of the Campos do Jordão Railway when he received the urgent call from his wife. He immediately canceled the tour, explained the emergency situation to the passengers, and headed to the park as quickly as possible. The couple arrived at the site at 3:20 p.m., finding a search operation already underway. The Campos do Jordão Fire Department arrived at the park at 2:40 p.m. with a specialized rescue team for forested areas. The commander of the operation, Captain Roberto Santos, 42 years old, with 20 years of experience in rescue operations, immediately assessed the situation and organized a systematic search in the area. The first hypothesis investigated was that Sakura had gotten lost while following one of the secondary trails. The search teams were divided into groups of 3, each equipped with whistles, radios, and first aid kits. Each group was responsible for searching a specific trail, following the strict security protocol and maintaining constant communication with the operations base set up in the picnic area. During the first 3 hours of intensive searching, all the trails within a 2-kilometer radius of the point where Sakura was last seen were thoroughly checked. The military police helicopter was called in at 5 p.m. to conduct aerial searches, covering an even larger area and looking for any signs of movement or pieces of clothing that could indicate the girl's location. In parallel to the physical searches, the Campos do Jordão Civil Police began a formal investigation into the case. The responsible delegate, Dr. Eduardo Martins, 50 years old, arrived at the park at 4 p.m. and began interviewing all the people involved in the field trip. Every teacher, monitor, guide, and even the other children were questioned individually to try to reconstruct the moments leading up to the disappearance. Sakura Matsumoto was a typical child of her age, known for her cheerful and communicative personality. She was the only child of Hanako and Jiro. She was the center of attention in her family and received all the love and care from her parents. Born on January 12, 1989, Sakura was 8 years and 8 months old at the time of her disappearance. Physically, she was of average height for her age, weighing approximately 28 kilograms and measuring 1.20 meters tall. She had straight black hair, characteristic of her Japanese heritage, which her mother always styled in 2 braids or a ponytail. Her eyes were dark brown, slightly almond-shaped, expressive, and always bright when she smiled. A small scar on her left knee, a result of a bicycle fall 6 months earlier, was a distinctive mark that could help with identification. Sakura was a dedicated student and loved by her teachers. According to teacher Maria Santos, she showed particular interest in natural sciences and always asked intelligent questions during lessons on the environment. She was one of the first to finish her math assignments and loved the moments of reading aloud. Her favorite subject was arts education, where she displayed creativity above average for her age. Socially, Sakura was well integrated with her classmates. Her best friend was Beatrice Costa, with whom she shared secrets, games, and snacks during recess. She was also close to Carolina Mendez and Rafael Santos, forming a small group of friends who always played together during school breaks. She had never been involved in serious conflicts with other students and was considered an emotionally balanced child. At home, Sakura maintained a well-structured routine. She woke up at 6:30 a.m., had breakfast prepared by her mother, brushed her teeth, and got ready for school. After classes, she had lunch with her paternal grandmother, Mrs. Emiko Matsumoto, 68 years old, who lived on the same street and took care of Sakura while her parents worked. In the afternoon, she did her homework, played in the yard, and watched cartoons on television. Sakura's parents had a stable and loving relationship. Hanako, 32 years old, had worked as a housekeeper at the Toriba Hotel for 6 years and was known for her dedication and punctuality. She dreamed of opening a small family guest house in the future and was saving money to make that project a reality. Giro, 35 years old, worked as a driver at Turismo Serra Verde for 9 years and had plans to buy his own vehicle to work independently. The family lived in a house they owned in the Jardim São Paulo neighborhood, a quiet residential area mainly inhabited by working-class families. The house had 2 bedrooms, a living room, kitchen, bathroom, and a small yard where Sakura enjoyed playing with her favorite doll and taking care of a small garden she had planted with her father's help. The neighbors knew the family well and often praised the girl's manners and kindness. The clues were piling up, but the mystery continued. If you are trying to solve this case with me, leave your theory in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The first physical evidence collected at the disappearance site was thoroughly analyzed by the technical experts of the civil police. At the exact point where Sakura was last seen, the experts found small footprints in the damp soil that matched the size of the shoes she was wearing. The footprints indicated that she had indeed stopped at the spot, as reported by Monitor Paula. However, no footprints were found indicating the direction Sakura had taken after stopping to tie her shoelace. The ground further ahead was dry due to a layer of fallen leaves, which did not preserve any marks of passage. This absence of physical traces became the first major mystery of the investigation. How could an 8-year-old child disappear without leaving any trace of her path? A wider search of the vegetation around the trail revealed some navy blue fabric fibers caught in bushes about 50 meters into a seldom used secondary trail. The laboratory analysis confirmed that the fibers matched the material of Sakura's school uniform. This discovery directed the search toward that specific area, but even after an intensive search, no other traces were found. Sakura's small pink backpack was found on the second day of searching, abandoned near a stream about 800 meters from the main trail. The backpack was open and empty, with no snacks, water bottle, or any personal belongings of the girl. Curiously, the backpack showed no signs of having been dragged by the current or damaged by animals, suggesting that it had been intentionally left there. Inside the backpack was a small piece of paper with a crayon drawing. The drawing depicted a simple house with a family of 3, 2 larger figures and a smaller one in the middle, all smiling and holding hands. In the corner of the paper, Sakura had written in childish handwriting, "I love my family." This discovery deeply moved her parents and ruled out any possibility of voluntary runaway. An analysis of Sakura's water bottle revealed intriguing information. It was found on the third day of searching, approximately 1.5 kilometers from the backpack, in a completely different area of the park. The water bottle was empty, but it showed no signs of having been used normally. Laboratory tests did not detect any foreign substances, but the location of the object raised questions about how it ended up there. Potentially important clue emerged when residents of a neighboring farm reported hearing childlike screams in the afternoon of the disappearance. Around 3 p.m., the farm couple, João and Rosa Pereira, both 60 years old, were working on milking cows when they heard what they described as a child's screams asking for help, coming from the direction of the forest. During the first few weeks, several people reported seeing a girl matching Sakura's description in different parts of the city. An employee of a supermarket in downtown Campos do Jordão claimed to have seen an Asian-looking child talking to an adult man near the toy section. A taxi driver reported having transported a man accompanied by a quiet, downcast girl towards the Floriano Rodrigues Pinheiro Highway. The official investigation was led by Delegate Eduardo Martins, who coordinated an operation involving over 50 police officers, firefighters, specialized guides, and trained volunteers. The search area expanded to 20 square kilometers, covering all the park trails, neighboring rural properties, and even abandoned houses in the region. During the first 15 days, the searches were intensive and continuous. Helicopters flew over the area daily. Sniffer dogs, specially trained to locate missing persons, were brought in from São Paulo, and heat detection equipment was used during the nighttime searches. Specialized divers searched all the bodies of water in the region, including the Sapucaí Miram River and several smaller reservoirs. It was during this deeper phase of the investigation that the first inconsistencies in the testimonies began to emerge. Small discrepancies in the times reported by different people, variations in the descriptions of events, and certain details that didn't quite fit began to catch the attention of experienced investigators. Monitor Paula Rodrigues was called for further questioning when investigators noticed that her version of the exact time Sakura fell behind the group varied slightly with each testimony. During a more rigorous interrogation, Paula admitted that she had been nervous during the initial testimonies and might have confused the exact times. 2 years after the disappearance, the case began to gradually cool down. Active searches were suspended, though the case remained officially open. The Matsumoto family continued to maintain hope and organized periodic campaigns to keep the case in the media. But the lack of new clues made the investigation increasingly difficult. Hanako and Jiro Matsumoto went through one of the most difficult phases of their lives. The mother developed severe depression and required intensive psychological support. The father remained outwardly more resilient, but he too suffered deeply from the loss of his daughter. The couple even considered separating, but they decided to stay together in the hope of someday finding Sakura in the following years. Sakura's case became a reference in studies on child disappearances in Brazil. Child safety experts and psychologists used the case to develop new protocols for prevention and quick response to similar situations. Sakura's story was documented in academic works and training programs for educators. Throughout all these years, Principal Antonio Carlos Ribeiro remained in his position at the school, continuing his work with dedication and always making himself available to collaborate with any new investigation related to Sakura's case. He retired in 2010 at the age of 71 after 45 years, dedicated to public education. In 2012, 15 years after Sakura's disappearance, Antonio Carlos Ribeiro now 73 years old and suffering from severe health problems, made a decision that would completely change the understanding of the case. Diagnosed with advanced stage cancer and with a prognosis of only a few months to live, he decided he could not die carrying the weight of a secret he had kept for 15 years. One afternoon in October, Antonio Carlos sought out Delegate Dr. Eduardo Martins, who had conducted the initial investigation, and requested a private meeting. For 3 hours, he confessed a truth he had kept hidden since the day of Sakura's disappearance, a truth that would explain all the mysteries surrounding the case. Antonio Carlos revealed that on the day of the excursion, he had not stayed at the school, as reported in his initial statements. In fact, he had secretly followed the group to the park, using his own vehicle, intending to personally supervise the activity and ensure everything went smoothly. As an experienced principal, he knew that school excursions always involved risks, and he wanted to be present to intervene if necessary. When the group split to follow the trail to the lookout, Antonio Carlos positioned himself on an elevated point where he could observe both trails. It was from there that he witnessed the exact moment Sakura separated from the group to tie her shoelaces. What he saw next disturbed him deeply and led him to make a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. After tying her shoelace, Sakura began to follow the group, but stopped abruptly upon seeing a baby coati that had separated from its mother and was visibly lost and frightened. The girl, with her caring nature and love for animals, approached the baby in an attempt to help it. The frightened coati ran toward the dense forest, and Sakura instinctively followed it. Antonio Carlos descended from his observation point and followed the direction where Sakura had entered the forest. For about 20 minutes, he searched, shouting her name, but the density of the vegetation made communication extremely difficult. It was during this search that he heard a cry for help that froze his blood. When he finally reached the location, he found Sakura at the bottom of a natural crevice concealed by vegetation, a kind of hole formed by erosion and covered by branches and leaves that had given way under the child's weight. The crevice was approximately 4 meters deep with steep, rocky walls. Sakura was conscious, but visibly injured, with a broken leg and signs of having hit her head during the fall. Antonio Carlos quickly assessed the situation. The crevice was too deep for him to descend and bring the girl back up safely. He would need ropes and rescue equipment that he did not have. Running back to get help would take at least 40 minutes, a time that could be crucial for Sakura's survival. It was then that he made the most controversial decision of his life. Using branches and rocks, he improvised a precarious descent to the bottom of the crevice. Sakura was entering shock, but was still conscious. He tried to comfort her while assessing her injuries. In addition to the broken leg, she had suffered a head trauma that was causing bleeding. For 2 hours, Antonio Carlos remained at the bottom of the crevice with Sakura, trying to keep her warm and conscious. He knew he needed to leave to get professional help, but he also knew that leaving the girl alone could be fatal. It was then that he heard the first voices of the search teams passing near the area. He shouted for help, but his voice did not reach the rescuers due to the depth of the crevice and the sounds of the vegetation. When he finally managed to climb out of the crevice, it was already dark. Sakura had lost consciousness and was breathing very weakly. Antonio Carlos then made the most painful decision of his life. Realizing that a gravely injured child, abandoned in a crevice for hours, would raise questions about his unauthorized presence in the park and his delay in seeking help, he panicked. Fearing the legal and professional consequences, he decided to conceal his discovery and allow the rescue teams to find Sakura. However, when he returned to the crevice the next day with the official teams, pretending to have found the location during the search, Sakura was no longer there. The girl's body had completely disappeared, leaving only a few bloodstains on the stones at the bottom of the crevice. Antonio Carlos could never explain what happened to Sakura's body during that night. He speculated that wild animals might have removed the body, or that nighttime rains could have washed it through underground passages connected to the crevice. The truth is, he never knew the final fate of the girl. For 15 years, he lived with the weight of that decision. The guilt of not seeking help immediately, of prioritizing his own reputation over the life of a child, and of lying to the authorities and to Sakura's devastated parents slowly consumed him. His final confession was an attempt to find some peace. Before he died, Delegate Eduardo Martins was shocked by the revelation. Although he could no longer prosecute Antonio Carlos due to his terminal condition, he officially reopened the case and organized a new search in the area of the crevice mentioned by the former principal. Specialized caving teams were called to explore all the possible underground passages connected to the location. The new searches revealed a complex system of previously unknown natural caves. In one of the deepest caves, about 800 meters from the original crevice, fragments of navy blue fabric and small bones were found and sent for forensic analysis. DNA tests confirmed that the remains belonged to Sakura Matsumoto. The family finally received the answers they had been seeking for 15 years. Although devastated by the revelation that Sakura had died on the very day of her disappearance, Hanako and Jiro found some relief in knowing the truth and being able to give their daughter a proper funeral. They sued Antonio Carlos for failure to provide assistance and concealment of a body. The municipal school was forced to completely revise its safety protocols and implement new monitoring systems for school excursions. The Sakura case became a landmark in Brazilian legislation on institutional responsibility for school-related outdoor activities. Antonio Carlos Ribeiro died 3 months after his confession, carrying with him the remorse of a decision that forever changed the life of a family and an entire community. His late confession, although it did not bring Sakura back, finally allowed the truth about her disappearance to be known. And so, another mystery is solved. If you manage to figure out the truth before the revelation, share it in the comments. If you like this case, click like, tell us where you're listening from, and subscribe to the channel by activating the bell. See you in the next mystery on our channel.